Oggi qualsiasi forma di comunicazione contiene in sé la possibilità di divenire espressione artistica. Dagli oggetti d'arredamento alle automobili, dalla scultura alla videoarte, c'è una linea sottile che lega tutte le manifestazioni della creatività. Questo è il mondo di Linea, idee e desideri toccati dalla scintilla dell'arte. Thurman è considerato il massimo esperto di filosofia ed etica buddista, un intellettuale capace di affrontare temi fondamentali come la vita, il dolore, il piacere o la morte con una leggerezza ma anche con una profondità tale che in breve tempo è divenuto il punto di riferimento ed incontro tra il pensiero occidentale e la filosofia del Buddha.
It is not possible to be happy without facing and overcoming the fear of death. I mean, you can be temporarily a little bit relieved, I mean, which we might call happy. I mean, I would call it happy. But to be really happy, durably happy and sustainably happy without conquering the fear of death is not possible. And because actually death is the wrong thing to be afraid of, actually. Pain is something that is reasonable to be afraid of, but it is not reasonable to be afraid of death, actually. And therefore, and in fact, it's a skill in life to be able to die. People even, is it only in French, they call orgasm le petit mort, the little death. And if you can't let go of yourself, so to speak, then you can't have a good time. That's for sure. Human being is a very amazing being, because people who have become human beings from the point of view of the Buddhist biology, Buddhist civilization's own biological theory, people who have become human have developed a sensitivity that is truly amazing. This brain is not just all these extra things in there, the billions and billions of neurons are not just there by accident, or they're just redundant, or they're unnecessary. They are there because of our incredible sensitivity. And we have this incredible sensitivity because when we were in other animal forms, we felt bored with being just sort of more tough, you know, and just eating something and just jumping on, like a tiger, jumping on somebody, eating it. And we became more curious, and we wanted to experience different things, we wanted to imagine other things, and we wanted to have more pleasure, actually. And the human being has far more pleasure than any other animal, by far. Maybe the dolphin is close, and the whale, but the human being is probably the most pleasure possible being, you know, with the greatest aptitude for pleasure. And so we absolutely are geared for happiness. However, because of our sensitivity and our incredible intelligence compared to other animal forms, we can also be more miserable. And we can be so depressed, and we can kill ourselves, and we can go through life like a living death. Or as Thoreau said, we can live lives of quiet desperation, you know? Definitely. And we can, then once we're really miserable, then we can be really harmful. Otherwise, we're basically gentle beings. If the mother didn't treat us very kindly, you know, she's Mammals are good in general because the mother has the baby inside, so the mothers know that their difference of self and other is only relative. And but the baby itself is helpless in the hands of the mother and father and the other beings for years, and utterly helpless, you know. And so we depend on the kindness of strangers, really, and other people. And so we're naturally gentle, but we can also, of course, be utterly vicious and violent. Because the human being is this completely malleable creature. We can become, you know, anybody can be Hitler, anybody can be Saint Francis, you know, if they really develop themselves in this and that direction. In a way, the supreme happiness, you know, what we call bliss, you know, bliss, freedom, indivisible is the nature of the universe, actually, from the Buddhist point of view. And so when we discover the nature of reality, we become blissful, according to that view. And pleasure, but there are different kinds of pleasure. And if we get hung up, the kind of pleasure that is temporary and that depends upon a particular stimulus is unreliable, and it's not satisfying, and then it creates it's like addictive. You want more, but and then the same amount doesn't satisfy. So that kind of pleasure can actually be an obstacle to developing real inner happiness, which comes from the cells of your body, you know, comes from the nature of life. And sometimes, therefore, asceticism, what we call asceticism, is the foregoing of certain minor pleasure to achieve a much higher pleasure. And that higher pleasure, as I say, I like to call it bliss, you know, or beatitudo. You know, you can call it beatitude, bliss, ecstasy, you can call it something like that. Those are the states that are much more pleasurable and much more desirable, and they don't rely on particular stimuli because, and this was the Buddha's great insight in the world, which he gave to the world, and it's not necessary that it ends up as a religious thing. But Buddha's insight is that the world is actually bliss. It's made of bliss, actually. When his highest teaching about nirvana is that this is nirvana. Nirvana is here. It's in the nature of the atoms. It's the subatomic energy, you know, of the things is bliss. So therefore, his whole discipline is wisdom, not faith. I mean, faith can be helpful temporarily, but basically wisdom. And wisdom doesn't just mean some sort of resignation or something, resigning yourself. Wisdom means clearly knowing reality, really what it is, and stripping away what blocks us from knowing reality, our projections and our delusions, and which make us unhappy. We cover over the blissful nature of reality with some sort of unsatisfactory divisions and concepts which make us unhappy. And we don't follow. You know, so the Buddha's main advice actually was not so much religious as it was almost scientific, because he said, since the nature of reality is bliss, which is the lucky thing, why I'm smiling, you know, why Buddha was smiling, because he discovered that. Therefore, the more you know reality, the more happy you will be. Ignorance is the cause of suffering. Ignorance is not bliss. We have a saying in the West, ignorance is bliss, but that's the opposite. Ignorance is suffering, and wisdom is bliss. That's what he discovered.